Hello, everyone. I will not start by introducing myself right away. I will start with this. Who has not heard about the International Criminal Court? Perfect. So everyone has, so I can move to the next slide. No, sorry. So here, as you guessed, I'm going to talk about sovereignty. And the issue that I'm going to discuss is about what about my data? What about my cloud? What about everything? And the perfect example today that everyone is aware of, but it's not the only one, is the International Criminal Court. So let me tell you a story. There's a guy there called Karim Khan. Who has heard about Karim Khan? Yeah, a few. So Karim Khan is a British guy. He's the general prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. There's not a nobody. There's not a terrorist. There's not someone from North Korea, for example. He's a British guy, general prosecutor. And in sometime, I think it was in May or before 2025, he went to his office and said, I want to access my email. And then no email. No access to my email. I've been shut out of my email. Working on Microsoft 365. The story doesn't really say who cut the email, but the fact is here, no email anymore. And it's just the first person at the ICC to be shut out of American systems by the US administration. A couple of things. So one is from AP News. The other one is from a legal website. And basically, the story is that Microsoft never admitted they did anything. They said, no, it's not us. It's the ICC who preemptively did something. So is that true? We don't know, and we will never know. But I found on the register, I think, a couple of stories where they said, yes, we did it, and then in front of a court, in front of the Dutch parliament, and then came back and said, no, we did not do it. So it's fairly fishy. So I am Jacques Bernard. I could have talked to you about cloud, but I think you heard, we were here enough today. I could talk to you about AI, but you're here enough today. I could talk to you about cybersecurity, which is really my core expertise. Also about cybersecurity of AI, which is one of the things that I really love. But today I talk to you about sovereignty. And I have been working for what I would call today, not the enemy, but the adversary. I spent 9 years working for Oracle. And I know how they try to sell you things the way they sell it to you. So that being said, is this an isolated case, the ICC? We could say, yeah, you know, we're not a court. You know, fine. Let me tell you another story. Sorry, it's also based in the Netherlands. I think they have something with the Netherlands. It's called ATB. ATB is the Amsterdam Trade Bank. And the Amsterdam Trade Bank was fully solvent and in 2 days went bankrupt. Why? Because using two cloud providers, one being Microsoft, the other one being AWS, and the bank was sanctioned, again by the US government in 2022. No access to systems, so no access to accounts, no access to nothing. For a bank, this is a death sentence. If you don't have access to the account of your customers, you won't go further. The crime? Well, the crime is that in their ownership, there was a Russian billionaire, and in 2022, that Russian billionaire was sanctioned. By ripple effect, ATB was sanctioned as well. So where it's a little bit tricky is that, I would say, apparently the contract were in Russia. That's probably the big mistake of ATB. Even though they were not a Russian bank, they were really a Dutch bank, but still, out in 2 days. Microsoft even refused at the beginning to provide the necessary information to the trustees, so basically the lawyers who were here to wrap up the company. So what should we be careful about when we talk about sovereignty? So I call them the four horsemen, okay? If I mention Sun Tzu, this is the art of war, from the art of war. Know thy enemy. The four horsemen are, as I said, four. You have all heard about the Cloud Act. Everyone knows about the Cloud Act. But the Cloud Act is the least lethal of the four horsemen. Why? Because the Cloud Act needs a judge and the US court say, I need data that sits somewhere. You are targeted, you can be targeted as long as you have a link with the United States. That is, if your company, your organization has a foot in the US, they go directly to you. If you don't, they can go to your cloud provider as long as your cloud provider has US operations. But that's the most, I would say that's really the most, the least of all. Then you have FISA for Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, Section 702. 702 because it was amended in 2008 by adding few stuff, and this is the one that we're going to talk about. This one is less known. This is an intelligence act that says, me as the US government, I can go and look into data of your customer cloud provider. And by the way, if I do that, contrary to Cloud Act, you are not allowed to tell them. You're not allowed. There is some, I would say, judicial oversight on it, but it's on a yearly basis. It's not on a, how would I put it? It's not on an individual basis. That is, on a yearly basis, the US courts review what is going to be collected broadly, but not who is going to be targeted. As long as it's interesting for intelligence purposes, that's fair game. Then you have OFAC. OFAC does not stand for, the people from Switzerland, does not stand for Office Fédéral de l'Aviation Civile. Okay, this is not that. This is the Office of Foreign Assets and Control. In foreign assets, you have foreign. This is something about all of us non-Americans. This is, again, specifically targeting non-Americans, okay? And this is the sanction regime. This is what targeted the ICC, Karim-Khan, or ATB, or other things in the world. As long as you do something that does not please the majesty of the head of the US government, OFAC comes in. Judicial oversight? None. Zero. And the last one is Executive Order 12333. That was created by Ronald Reagan, so it's not new, but it's been used extensively. You probably heard about Snowden. Why, Snowden is this, okay? This, you'll never know about it. Nobody knows about it, and potentially even the clouders themselves don't know about it, because it allows them to do whatever they want with the data as long as there is an American presence here, period. So I call them the four horsemen by going from top to down. This is the one, the first one is the one we can protect against. And if you go down, the further down you go, the least you can have protection against it. Note that Americans are concerned, American citizens and corporations are only concerned with the first one, because this is from a court. They can target American citizens with the first one. The other three are for all of us, non-Americans. That being said, and I want to be fair, there are other extraterritorial laws. GDPR is one, or its counterpart in Switzerland, which is NFADP, which is broadly equivalent. But it only concerns our citizens. So for NFADP, it's only the Swiss citizen. For GDPR, the EU citizens. We are not looking at foreigners. Sorry. The second one is the cybersecurity law of China, but again, concerning only Chinese citizens. And then you have the Brazilian and a few others. But it's only something focusing on our own citizen of our own country. This is not looking at foreign citizens. Of course, every country has intelligence operations, but not as developed as what you can see here. What is the response for cloud providers? Probably heard they all have European, EU, whatever, sovereign cloud. So I have been working on one, the first one, Oracle, as I mentioned, but they have all done the same thing. And what they do here, and they say, we have separated our cloud operations, our cloud infrastructure for Europe. We've separated from the rest. We've put it in European entities that are fully following European laws. And because of that, we cannot follow what the American would tell us. Okay, I've been in a room with enough people at Oracle to know that this is not true. Why? But first, does it work? Let's go and do that. So, sorry, the first one is in French because this is a hearing from Microsoft France with the French Senate. And basically, a senator asked Microsoft, could you, under oath, certify that you cannot, Microsoft, the US authority cannot access the data for French citizens? And a guy from Microsoft, being under oath, not a marketing guy, he's the legal director of Microsoft, said, no, I can't. I can't, because that's not possible. Basically, it doesn't work. But what I really love is this one. It's the Microsoft document on Cloud Act. Notice on Cloud Act, not on FISA, not on OFAC, not on EO 12333, only on Cloud Act. The Cloud Act does not ignore foreign law, blah, blah, blah. It's based on principles of courtesy, reciprocity, and mutual respect for the sovereignty of nations. Now, that I say that, picture Donald Trump in your head. Think about courtesy. Think about respect for the sovereignty of nation. And then we can talk. And then the third one, the Dutch, again. I love the Dutch. Specifically because they're very direct. And they wrote a memo. So the memo was written by, I think, the University of Amsterdam for the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centrum. So basically, this is the people responsible for the cybersecurity of the Dutch government. And the memo says, in order for an EU entity, and also a Swiss entity, let's put it together, to completely avoid being subject to the Cloud Act, and we only talk about the Cloud Act, not the rest, given that the rest is worse, it would need to process data using a non-US entity which either does not have a corporate relation to any company with a presence in the US. So basically, the sovereign cloud we saw before are all there. They're all marketing gimmicks, I would say. They give a level of protection, let's be honest. But if you want the ultimate one, they don't give it to you, period. So coming back, how do we define sovereignty? Well, I've looked at it. The Swiss government, the Swiss federal government has a definition. The German federal government has a definition. The French government has a definition. I think the Italian also. I mean, everyone has a definition. And guess what? They're all different. That's easy. So I came up with my own. Okay, not only my own, but I discussed with people. I posed 3 words. Choice. You want choice. You want more choice. And you want even more choice. That's what you want. The moment you don't have a choice, you're no more sovereign. Because you're stuck. You're dependent. It's exactly that. Choice provides control. Without choice, you don't have control. And this is exactly what you want. Beware. In the marketing document from Microsoft regarding the investment for Switzerland, they have that. And I think it's in the link that I provide on the slide, and I can provide the slides. They say, we provide control. Well, make the way back. Yeah, provide control, but you also provide the entry point. So be careful. No choice dependency. This is exactly what I said. So what should we do about it? So 4 things to look at. If I want to make sure that I'm sovereign, first question I should ask myself, what are my security needs? And security is very often defined with 3 dimensions: availability, confidentiality, and integrity. For specifically sovereignty, we're going to leave integrity aside. Why? Because this is definitely not what is at stake here. Doesn't mean it's not important, but it's not what is at stake. However, confidentiality is obviously super important because you want to keep your data confidential. And availability, because if you are under, hopefully not, but you're under a sanction, well, and your services are taken away, well, they're no more available. And then your business is in trouble, exactly as we said with the ICC, but they could manage, or with ATB, which couldn't manage. Then that's standard supplier management. You really look hard at your dependencies. And the dependencies are from the supplier point of view, but also from your service point of view. If you are using a service that is not available anywhere else but at that cloud provider, then you are, even though that's the only one, but it's critical for your business, then you are completely dependent. So basically, am I giving too much control on system that I won't be able to work without or to migrate easily out of? Your legal requirements, obviously, especially where there are conflicts. Because the thing with Cloud Act and FISA, they're not compatible with GDPR or NFADP. This is the Schrems II court, don't remember the word, but basically what Schrems II says from the European Union Court of Justice. There is a gross incompatibility between those laws and our laws. It doesn't work together. Can't work together. And the last one, which is fairly new, I think since last year, is that we really need to check our geopolitical exposure. Who would have thought about that? We can ask our Danish friends. Not me saying it, but from that, some people said, well, it's easy to take Greenland. Just turn off Microsoft Office 365. The Danish government, and I have enough Danish friends to know, they have everything on Microsoft. The Danish government runs everything on Microsoft. Turn off. Oops. No more Greenland. And the interesting thing to note is that I mentioned the laws, the requirements, etc. Don't know if you've seen that, but the US Department of State, so Marco Rubio, push a cable to all these diplomats, say you have to fight about every sovereignty law that foreign countries would do. Basically, in another time, we would have called that, sorry for the word, colonialism. We don't want you to have your own laws because it impacts our laws. Not great. But remember, 4 things. What are my security needs? Where are my dependencies? What are my legal requirements? If nobody can access my data, then that means a lot of things. And I've shown data can be accessed. And yes, the last one, which is really difficult because most of the people here are not geopolitical experts. I'm not. But is to think what could be the impact of. So this is scenario analysis, scenario planning, based on how the world is currently evolving. Yeah, we live in a more and more complicated world, and we have to take that into account. I'm okay? Okay, good. Okay, what about open source? Yes, yes, yes. But. You know it, but still, I'm going to say it. It's definitely a sovereignty enabler, because it allows you to take some solution and to use it on your own, etc. But it's not a complete solution, because someone, might be you, might be someone needs to manage all those things, infrastructure, operations, maintenance, and so on. We need support for critical activities. That is not everything you need, like 4-hour response to a ticket or something like that. But you still need a level of support depending on your activities. Sadly, we still have hardware dependencies. As far as I know, not true anymore, but still a lot of chips now are still Intel or AMD. Again, American-based, so that doesn't mean it's an issue, but we have to keep that in mind. And we also need something else. People. The more you go open source, the more you need people. Basically, you're trading a solution that you buy on the shelf that is managed for you, and you're replacing it by a service you manage on your own. So you need people. And the issue with people is that in the past 20 years, probably not in this room, but if you take the average company today, no one does tech infrastructure. No one. Which means there are less and less people who know how to do tech infrastructure today. How do we manage that? Yeah, we knew We know far less now. We have given that skills to a few giant players on the global scene who can manage that on their own, but we don't know how to do it anymore. Well, again, not everyone wants to have fully fledged IT department with infrastructure. Fine, but at least make sure you understand the trade-offs you're taking when you don't do that. So, for example, if I look at a bank says, I'm not an IT department. I'm not an IT company. I don't need that. Yes, but you're a bank. And a bank without IT doesn't work. So what do I keep? What I don't keep, etc. And remember, if you want to build back infrastructure, IT infrastructure is a complicated skill. Everyone remember AWS in October? That was a DNS glitch. Who knows how to set up a bind server and set up a complex DNS domains with subdomains and infrastructure? DNS is a core infrastructure skill that less and less people know how to manage. So that was that thing with our friend at AWS. So my question to you today, what is the biggest threat to having a skilled organization? Any answer? Should be easy, but sorry? Okay, it's AI. We have outsourced our infrastructure to a few global players. If we outsource to the AI providers are thinking of ways of working and then we rely on that without thinking too much, this is a major threat. So I love AI, but it needs to be used very, very responsibly. We need to use it to help us to learn and not to do the things for us. Okay, the routine task is one thing, but the core things that are important, we need to keep control of them. If everything we do is now in a model and we don't do it anymore, then we have outsourced another chunk of our knowledge to a few other global players, and today, sadly, either on the West or on the East. Us, yeah, I know we have a few things. They represent not much, I would say. Oh, I'm good. In conclusion, first of all, don't be fooled by marketing. I think I'm in an audience here who is fully aware that you need to make a difference between what you're being told by the vendor and the reality of things. Do your risk analysis. So, okay, I'm a cybersecurity guy, so I do that all the time. But then people are not used to think about the risk. But it's more important today, given what I just presented. Don't put your egg in a single basket. But before that, define the basket. What is the basket? Because if I wear ATB in 2021, remember, it's 2022 that this applies. I said, yeah, I didn't put all my eggs in a single basket. AWS on one side, Azure on the other side. I'm good. Yeah, but that's a single basket because they're all US-based. If they had done Microsoft on one side and Alibaba on the other side, that was not the same basket. Okay, maybe, I wouldn't judge that, but at least that's not the same basket. So you need to define the basket. Obviously, the critical skills, what do we really need to keep internally, what do I need to do myself, and then train, because the core things of sovereignty, as I said, is choice, to provide control, but to get that, you need people. You need the skills. So again, I think I'm in an audience that is fully aware of that. That doesn't need convincing, but still, I think it's worth reinforcing. And yes, leverage open source where where it makes sense. Sometimes it's better to do it yourself. At the end of the day, it might cost less. And I say cost less, not only the fact that open source is free, but globally, overall, that function that I deliver with open source might cost less. Use open systems and then leverage the overall ecosystem. I think this is exactly what we are trying to do here. And I leave you with, it is not exhaustive, definitely not, but things that are, I didn't make complete research, but normally fairly sovereign from either Swiss or European point of view. There are names you probably know very well here. Normally, yeah, I think they're here. And a few others that are probably less well known. But basically, just to show that we don't have to go and look for something at Google or AWS or Microsoft or Oracle or whatever. We have a lot of things, actually, we can do here in Switzerland or in Europe. And if you want to write to me, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.